Is the Quinnipiac campus religiously diverse? How do students in religious organizations interact with each other? Is there a stigma attached to being involved in a religious group on campus? These are the questions that we set out to explore.
According to the 2013 Incoming Freshman Religiosity Survey at Quinnipiac, almost 50% of students identified with Roman Catholicism, almost 5% identified with Judaism, and just over 1% identified with Islam. These religions make up 3 of the main student religious organizations on campus.
Every Sunday I would go to church with the Catholic Church because that was the faith I agreed with and prescribed to. But the weekends I was with my dad, I would also go to the church for the Church of Christ. So a lot of weekends growing up, I actually went to 2 church services in a day. So because of that, even though for most of my life I really identified as Catholic, I was extremely aware of other Christian faiths, and it was kind of one of those things where my family wanted me to really be aware of my choices before deciding what I wanted to be.
I was raised under Hindu parents, and I have not changed my religion.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Islam, and I'm still
Jewish. Judaism.
Conservative or?
Yeah, I'm conservative.
Okay.
Raised conservative.
You too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also conservative.
Conservative, Jewish.
Conservative Jewish.
And what part of that religion would you say you are now?
Reformed.
There's
Reform.
no, there's
Reform.
right, there's no
Reform.
Right, so get this in the dynamic, 'cause that's what, right, so we are both presently reformed. Now, you grew up conservative.
I grew up conservative.
But
Technically,
did you
I'm not.
go to
I went to conservative
synagogue?
synagogue, but I
Okay.
hated it, so
And then when
I'm
did
saying
you
that
go
I'm
to
reformed.
I raised in Islam. This is Sunni Islam.
Okay. And did you stay in that sector of your religion, or did you change?
I stayed.
I was raised Roman Catholic, and I stayed in a member of that community. But I would also say that in terms of change, I certainly don't believe the same things that I did when I was younger.
Protestant.
Protestant.
Roman Catholic.
Agnostic.
Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic.
Jewish. Roman Catholic. Jewish.
Non-religious.
Non-religious.
Jewish.
Non-religious.
All right. Now, what religion were you raised in, and did you stay with this religion or change? And if you changed, say which one you changed to.
I was raised Protestant, and then was, I guess, non-denominational. I've stayed the same.
Raised with Catholicism, and kind of went into broaden my horizon.
Same.
Same.
I was raised Catholic and then kind of branched away from religion altogether.
Yeah, same. I was Catholic until,
I was raised Jewish and still Jewish. And I was raised Mormon and branched away.
Although there are various faiths represented in the student population on campus, there is confusion as to whether there is religious diversity.
Do you think we have a religiously diverse campus?
No. Yes. In a way, there's a lot of religion present on campus, but not a lot of places to practice it.
No, there's not a lot of religious diversity on this campus. These are overwhelmingly Catholics. You know, the student body, the faculty staff is overwhelmingly Catholic. However, that number is going down. 6-7 years ago, it was about 70% Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
But as the university diversifies its student population, it becomes more religiously diverse. But it's still, looking at the demographic out of which we draw the students, they come from overwhelmingly Catholic populations, and so the university makeup reflects it.
Mm-hmm.
That said, there is diversity here if you see it, because my contention is all along, while I do not think we are particularly religious diverse, we are the greatest diversity in this university is religious diversity. We are much more religiously diverse than we are economically diverse, than we are racially diverse. The face of diversity here is religion, and even then, we're not particularly religiously diverse.
Do you think we have a religiously diverse campus?
Yeah.
No, not really.
I think that it's all there. It's whether they decide to express it or not.
Yeah, if it is diverse, we just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that it exists within
Yeah.
individuals.
I would say I don't think we have a lot of diverse in volume in terms of volume. Like we might have it like one person, but we don't have like if you go to Rutgers, like there's like groups of different religions.
We don't express it.
Yeah, I just don't think we have very, like, I think people are religious, but people don't show it, so it's hard to really gauge.
It seems that the bulk of the interactions between students and religious groups are in formal settings, activities that have been set up by their religious leaders. When Rabbi Judd and Nisette were asked about their interactions with non-religious students, they said that they have not had any. Father Lenahan said that if non-faith practicing students attended his events, he would not know because he doesn't ask students if they are religious. Students don't seem to be hanging out with religious people in different organizations unless they are in the religious meeting room or at an event.
Do you interact with students from other religious groups on campus?
Yeah. Yeah, my roommate is in this, and we always drop our sweepings to come.
Yeah. The first couple of friends I made on campus were because of the Herald House. I came to synagogue, or not synagogue, but I came to one of the Friday night services, and I just met a bunch of people here. And then I've met a bunch of people. I'm living with some people who go to mass here on campus, and I have a bunch of Catholic friends.
Not only do we interact, you just saw it, you didn't recognize it. The student who came in is one of the Jewish student leaders. Yeah. He makes his weekly stop in at the end of the meeting to say hello. And we're launching an entire series of programs in Engaged Religion next semester, in which, look, all of our programs are open to everybody. There's no religious test for any program that the Catholic Chaplaincy does. And we work with the variety of different religious groups here on campus. On the 18th, for example, when we have Orthodox prayer discussion, as I mentioned, the Greek priest will be here, but our students will sit down with the Greek students. So yeah, it's one of the great strengths of the religious community, one of the great strengths of Quinnipiac is that the religious communities interact and support each other in a very, very fundamentally positive way. And I personally contend, as the Catholic priest, the Catholic students are stronger in their faith when they have an opportunity to learn about the faith of others.
I think that the connection is growing in that the Father and I are doing more together. The connection is growing. I think it's not something that's been really addressed.
Fortunately, yes, we actually do. This is something that we've improved over the past year or two, I would say, is that we're starting to work a lot with the Jewish students, partially because the Jewish pastor and our priest get along really well. And it's been a really blessing. We've also worked with the Muslim students on campus. We've gone to some of their events. They've come to some bars. We do interfaith stuff. So a lot of our discussions are between the Jewish and Catholic groups, although we do a little bit with the Muslim students on campus. And it's actually interesting because the room that we're in right now is the multi-purpose, multi-faith room. And so a lot of people from different faiths will actually come hang out here. And so last year, I got to know a lot of people in the Muslim group really well because we would both hang out in here and just do homework and relax and whatever. So just having this space allowed for discussions and getting to know people I probably never would have gotten to know otherwise. So I've gotten to know people in other faiths in the professional setting through our organization and our meetings and our events, but also just on the go as I'm here hanging out and I see people and we start a discussion, and it's always fun.
There seems to be a common thought among students that college students in general tend to be less religious in college than people outside of college. This could be due to how busy college students are, or could be due to other factors.
People's faith lives change over time, and I think that the way that someone encounters their faith in a college setting is going to be very different when they grow older. A lot of times when you're in college, you're first starting out on your own, you're trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do, what you enjoy doing for a career and on the side, and a lot of these things are overwhelming and kind of take over your life. And there are people who really stay strong with their faith during this time too, but for a lot of people, in my experience, I've seen them kind of struggle with that or other things take priority. But then when they get older and things come in their life, like having a family and having kids, and how do they want to raise their kids, how do they want their family to be, how do they want their life to be, they start thinking of things that they grew up with or their faith, and they might want to rely on that belief system more. So I don't think it really goes away when you're in college. I just think that other things kind of take priority.
I would say less.
Yeah, I definitely feel like my religious community at home was a lot more prevalent and visible. Here on campus, I meet people who are Jewish that I never thought were Jewish because it never comes up in conversation.
I feel like people here, they'll say they're Jewish, but they don't really do, like, they won't go to services or other things. They'll just, like, say it.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like most college students are less religious or tend to avoid religious practices in college just because they're focused on so much other stuff that's kind of like least on their priority.
If there is a stigma on campus, it most likely stems from the lack of interaction between people. The students in religious groups seem to mostly interact in formal settings. From what we gathered, they do not seem to get coffee or eat at the CAC together. The idea that religious students tend to stay in their own group can be attributed to the idea of the sacred canopy. The students could be using their religious groups and the people in them as a sanctuary from the overall secular and chaotic college life. It also seems like students that are not involved in religious groups do not come to the events. This disconnect among the community could be what is causing the possible stigma. All of the students we talked to who are not involved in religious groups on campus think that there is a stigma, and the religious students and leaders' answers were mixed.
Can there be a stigma? Absolutely. Is sometimes going to be warranted? Certainly. It depends how you carry yourself. Other times not. Look, that there is an academic bias against religion, especially against Catholicism, absolutely. I've heard it here. I've only been here a year. I've heard it here from faculty. I've seen it in programs that have been done. Subtle institutional bias. I've seen it. So is there, now, does bias constitute stigma? Well, that depends. Again, how do you measure that? Is it enough to take anecdotal reports? Is there statistical evidence that students who are involved in religious organizations formally during their university time and listed on their resumes find that at times it can be problematic for employment? Yeah, I read there was a sociological study just a few months ago about that. So are there stigmas? Easy way is to say yes, and I believe that there are. It's much harder to quantify or measure. This point here.
Do you feel that there's a stigma attached to being religious when you're in college?
Yes.
Unless you go to a religious school, then yeah.
Why is there a stigma though? Like, why do you think there's one?
It's just not the cool thing to do anymore.
I feel like a lot of people are trying to fit in when they first get into college, so being religious, they might be embarrassed about it. It's different from what other people are.
I think there's a stigma if you want there to be. I personally have never really felt a stigma, but that's because I feel like I've been around people who are accepting enough of it. I'm sure, like, if you were around people who really don't like the church or have something against it and are very anti-religion, then maybe you would feel some stigma. But I feel like most people, in my experience, respect my decision. If anything, it's, you're different. You might make different choices than other people. But as long as you're with people who accept that, then it's not anything negative about your life at all.
Do you think that there's a stigma? That's why there's not allowed. Just on the Quinnipiac campus?
No, I think it's more kids just, like, we're not out there enough. Like, a lot, like, I mean, like, I could talk to a lot of people, like, and they'll be like, wait, there's a Jewish house, like, there's this. Like, I think it's more of that.
I think it's more lack of knowledge?
Yeah.
There is quite a small stigma just because if you are religious, that means you tend to not drink or abstain from doing things that most students are doing on Friday nights and on the weekends. It has to do a lot with like nightlife activities. So there is a small stigma, but I don't think anyone's judged on this campus for being religious at all.
Maybe some of them, some students, they identify themselves more as cultural rather than religious, and this is understandable. So again, I cannot make a very big generalization, general statement.
For me, no.
I think it's like I think the main problem is the lack of knowledge. I don't think there's a stigma necessarily, like, you definitely hear people say stuff, but I don't think it is something that has ever been a problem, at least in my life. But I think it is just the lack of knowledge and trying to promote it better so that people actually come and know about it.
I think some people might view it as a stigma if they're not like proud of it. Like some people might not want to be associated with something they're not proud of, but I know if people are proud of it, they'll say it and they don't have any problem with it.
What stigma do you think people have that turns them off from going to a religious group on campus?
Righteous.
I guess like naive.
And I think this is just like a personal fear, but I always like fear that being judgmental.
Yeah,
Because
that's
like
what I say.
yeah, like someone like me, if they were to interact and I were to tell them my beliefs, like I feel like it like stick their nose up and like trying to say it for me so I can be safe.
I think narrow-minded.
Yeah.
I feel like their values might differ strongly from like the typical college student who's going out and like doing things that maybe you wouldn't do if you're super religious.
Whether there is or is not a stigma on the Quinnipiac campus associated with being in a religious group, it is dependent on individual ideas. According to Nisette, the only way to overcome the possible stigma not only in the Quinnipiac community, but also in the global community, is to have interfaith dialogue and willingness to understand and accept one another.
Interfaith dialogue, it's a relatively new concept. Even in the Muslim world, it's new. And we try to develop it, the relationships between the Muslim, Christian, Jewish, and also if we had, I would love it if we had a Buddhist or Hinduist chaplain as well. So sitting around the table and discussing about certain topics and trying to find solutions for the modern problems we face. Again, it comes to interfaith dialogue, or in general, human dialogues, intrafaith or interfaith, or the dialogue with non-believers, let's say, is another option. So instead of getting in trouble and getting angry at each other and turning our backs against the other, we should stay on circling around the table, and we should talk to each other and try to understand each other. If we can do that, I believe we will see that most of the differences that we think exist are not there. There are so small things actually. Not among the Abrahamic traditions, I say, Muslims, Christians, Jews. Also, the other traditions, Buddhism, Hinduism. There are so much common than the differences. So, again, for the good of the humanity and the future of this world, I think we should go for this